Have you really forgotten the truth about the ninja world? When the hypocritical Jingling Court, the ferocious virtual circle, the cruel ghost realm, the terrifying curse as ancient terms resurfaced from the main text of history, the ninja world finally recalled the fear that had once been dominated by Kaguya Narimi, as well as the shame of being imprisoned in a birdcage. On that day, Hui and I looked at the death-like silence of the Ninja Alliance and said softly, "Although my heart is black and my hands are ruthless, I talk nonsense, and I am cunning and cunning, those are not my original intentions. Now, I have abandoned the dark and turned to the light. I sincerely stand with you all. Please trust my determination to be a good person." Behind him are densely packed the mastermind behind the scenes directed the entire disaster film in the ninja world, but actually just wanted to be the savior. One-sentence version. The mastermind behind the scenes defected from the organization he established and wanted to be a good person. I'm sorry, I lied again. P.S. There may be some misunderstanding about the definition of good person in this cheat. Keywords of the novel. Man in the Fire Shadow, opening a quiet spirit court without pop-ups. Man in the Fire Shadow, opening a quiet spirit court complete collection download TXT. Man in the Fire Shadow, opening a quiet spirit court latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The cheats have been credited to my account, but I feel cool. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The cheats have been credited to my account, but I feel cool. My cheat has a delay and the download progress is stuck at 99%. May I ask if it's disconnected and can I reconnect? 3 years ago, Hui and I, who had traveled through time to become a member of the Corpse and Bone clan, saw an inexplicably disconnected cheat in his mind as he looked at the vertebrae pulled out of his body. His eyes were full of collapse. Tomorrow the whole clan will rebel, and if there are no unexpected outcomes, they will die neatly, except for one survivor. It's not me anyway. My cheat has not been launched yet, what should I do? Online waiting, it's quite urgent. 3 years later, Hinayana saw a room full of foolish people whose brains seemed to be calcified. He closed his eyes, but the cheat in his mind remained motionless. Oh, it's hopeless. Hui Naijian decided to lie down and die on equal footing, no longer struggling, feeling tired. You never know which one will come first, death or cheating. Death. At this moment, Kaguya Narimi died at the age of 12. On the third day after death. The dismembered body that Hui and I saw was soaked in formalin water, and he finally no longer had to worry about the order of death and cheating. Now is the sweetest time he has slept in the past 3 years, he can have a good dream now. The cost is getting a hole in the neck and half of the chest stabbed out with white bones, all of which are irregularly cut off, appearing to be torn from the body by some ferocious weapon, or as if bitten by a terrifying monster. The scene before death, the perpetrator is not important. In short, Kaguya Narimi is a dead person. Damn it. There was no heartbeat, no breathing, and the pungent smell of chemical drugs flowed through the blood vessels. The pale and lifeless eyes of the dead fish stared without closing their eyes, proving that it was death in the absolute sense of medicine and physics. However, strangely enough, Hui Naijian's brain was still running. A dead person felt their own death, gone. The coffin of science had another layer of nails pried off, and the culprit was the late hanging outside the coffin knocking on the door, which was unreasonable. He asked if the dead person lying inside could still be saved. Welcome to the behind-the-scenes mastermind, you all misread me. I am definitely a good person system, abbreviated as Black Good Person cheat has been launched, detected disappearance of host vital signs. The cheat cannot function properly. Based on the current situation, activate alternative solutions, readjust the host's initial life form, replace the corresponding beginner gift package, and the solution is currently being activated. A pattern similar to the startup screen was silently running in his mind, and Hui and I didn't know how to understand his current eerie state. His eyes, which were tinged with the color of a dead fish, were in formalin water, cold and reflecting the miserable state of the corpse, motionless. Suddenly, a slender white thread crawled out from the chest, followed by countless white threads, drawing out abruptly from shattered internal organs, broken bones, necrotic muscle tissue, and withered and solidified blood vessels. Then, they intertwined and woven together, like layers of pale porcelain growing out of the body, slowly and firmly covering the entire surface of the corpse. Tightly fitted, only revealing pale eyeballs, but seeing a circle of black pupils as if floating back to the surface from the depths of the Dead Sea. Rebirth from death. Huey Naijian felt the cold touch of his body covered in porcelain tiles, which was a long-lost touch that only living people could possess. Oh no, strictly speaking, he can no longer be considered a living person now, because according to the subtitles flowing in his consciousness. Original corpse container renovation perfect state armed with death god's righteous remains, advantages. Perfect, disadvantages. Cannot be easily replaced and retains the original appearance, with unsatisfactory appearance, the fragile souls of deceased humans upgrade to the god of death, newcomer gift pack replaced with. A quiet spirit court, sealed, so, have I upgraded from a human to a god of death now. Although this body feels no different from a living person, it is actually an armed skeleton transformed from a corpse. This wave seems to have been earned. Then there's no problem. The only thing that made Hui Yanai feel a bit sarcastic was that this cheat seemed to have given him an incorrect rating for his appearance. Huey Naijian's consciousness was immersed in the depths of the cheat, where there was a narrow crack, like a frozen chasm in the void and darkness. Across the chasm was another world sealed by time. A continuous ancient architectural complex, surrounded by a circular arch facing the center, with a towering and huge city wall at the outermost edge. Jingling Court. It's not in vain that I've been waiting for cheats for 3 years. At the beginning, I included a Jingling Court. It seems like this is the correct strategy for turning the tide, die first. Huey Nai saw looking towards Jinglingting from the side of the chasm, completely unaware that if he looked up from the position of Jinglingting, it was as if there was a terrifying vertical eye in the dark sky overlooking the entire world. The focal length of the line of sight can be freely scaled, from a distance one can overlook the entire Jingling Court, from a close view one can observe every street, the mottled and old walls, the flat but rough road surface, the winding and deep corridors, all shrouded in the traces of long years, and the stiff and motionless black-robed gods of death, like densely packed real-person wax statues, maintaining a posture of looking up at the sky in a neat and uniform manner, as if all have been separated from the years. At the forefront of these figures, they climb up the stairs to reach the central building's high platform. 13 figures with different expressions and shapes are arranged in sequence, with black death robes and white feather weaving still maintaining their dancing in the air. Although they are frozen in the picture, they still exude a heart-stopping and chilling coldness from their souls. It seems like the next second they will open their eyes and draw their swords, choosing someone to devour. Obtain ownership of the Jingling Court, seal, automatically inherit the identity of the Spirit King, and use achievement points to unlock characters, items, and buildings in the Jingling Court. The subtitles flowed through the retina, and Huey Naijian suddenly felt a surge of passion in her heart. So full of organization and storage, this quiet spiritual courtyard is mine. Alright, stop pretending, I'll show my cards. I'm the illegitimate ghost of the previous generation of spiritual king, and the contemporary spiritual king Huey Naijian. After 4 minutes and 4 seconds, Hinayana's mood gradually calmed down. Legacy. Achievement points. Is this the legendary inheritance tax? Huey Naijian realized that this massive inheritance was not an unconditional inheritance, and he needed to pay inheritance tax. As a god of death, this is outrageous. On the sacredness of taxation. Beyond life and death, fortunately, as the spiritual king Huey Naijian, he has a little privilege. He can pay inheritance tax in batches, that is, for each inheritance, unlocking, he pays a tax, achievement point. Hui Yanai narrowed his gaze and glanced around, roughly counting the items that belonged to him in name in his heart. His mood was half excited and half worried. He found that when he kept his gaze fixed on a certain spot for a long time, the tax payment for unlocking would appear on the other person's head. Most items and buildings have a fixed number on their heads, such as Lingwang Palace 100000, Xinyang Lingshu Academy 50,000, Palace 30,000, guarding the 13th team building 30,000, Yuan Lingzi conversion machine 50,000, crossing gate 20,000. The current building/item is not eligible for bargaining. It will be visible after unlocking its function and purpose. A small number of items and buildings have a floating area above their heads, such as Confession Palace 4000.7000, Comprehensive Ambulance Clinic 8000.15000, Technology Development Bureau 10,000.4000, 12,000. 20,000 for Covert Maneuvers, Ghost Road Public Organ Department 9,000.16000. The current price of buildings/items can fluctuate, and it is allowed to replace a discounted portion with some similar objects from the present world. The function and purpose can be unlocked and visible. Jinglingting is a huge heritage that is difficult to count for a while, and his gaze is only a rough scan. The first thing that comes into view is naturally some large items, and there are more miscellaneous things that are not prominent. For example, Huey Naijian is most interested in the broken jade, but he has not been able to see it for the time being. Of course, even if he does see it, he may only be addicted to it at this moment. The melancholy of the rich second generation, tax restrictions on my imagination. Of course, the most visible area is the densely packed black-robed death god, with square squares on top of his head, which means that the price can fluctuate. Death god. It is necessary to use the corpses of the present world to discount some taxes and fees. The fresher and stronger the corpses, the higher the discount value. A clear and concise explanation, with prices ranging from 2 to 5 or even 6 digits, fully confirms the old saying in the corpse soul realm that the gap between death gods and death gods is greater than that between death gods and pigs. Even, the existence value of the densely packed death gods on the ground may be to highlight the 13 figures standing at the top. Captain of the 13th Division of the Court Protector. Team Leader Yamamoto Motonari Yoshitaka. Team Leader, 62,000.85000. Second Team Captain Suifeng 19,000.34000. Captain of Sanfan Team, Shimaru 25,000.37000. Captain Mao Jihua of the 4th Division 31,000.48000. Captain of the 5th Team, Sosuke Aizen. Captain of the 6th Team, Kashiwagi Shirazai 24,000.36000. Captain of the 13th Team, Fuju Shijiro, 20,000.35000. The most important legacy of the Jingling Court now belongs to you. With just a little cost and discounted corpses, you can unlock it and return to this world, becoming a powerful arm for you to cause trouble. With such great value for money, what are you waiting for? P.S. Discounting is only used when unlocking characters, and a single character can only use a corpse once to discount its value, billions of dots. Huey Naijian said it was fake, that he was not interested. He eagerly flipped to the achievement page, which showed the current achievement points of 3,700 and detailed records of the sources of these achievement points. Opening the beginner's gift pack to receive 2,000 initial achievement points. Achieve, don't be a human after death, earn achievement points. 1,000, achieve achievement, am I dead? I'm alive again, earn achievement points. 500, achieve achievements, my stomach is filled with formalin water, earn achievement points. 200, 2,000 plus 1,000 plus 500 plus 200 is equal to 3,700, verified to be correct. Huey Naijian also confirmed that the achievement points can not only unlock the heritage in the Jingling Court, but also rotate the wheel in the center of the achievement page for lottery. 1,000 achievement points can be drawn once. For a moment, Hui Yanai wanted to give up the inheritance of Jingling Court. Who would inherit the inheritance from a serious person? To be a contented and contented god of death, wouldn't a quiet lottery be more ambitious? Try my best to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle, maybe I'll just pull out anything I can't afford to unlock, human. Oh no, it's because the Grim Reaper is so poor that he's prone to deviant thoughts. Since there are crooked ways to go, why is Huinai willing to take the right path? The pain of saving money is not as refreshing as the moonlight. Huinai decided to start with a triple draw. Drop. Due to poor signal transmission in the ninja realm, the download of cheats was interrupted for 3 years. This vulnerability has been fixed and compensated. Within 72 hours, all achievement points that need to be paid in the beginner gift package, Jingling, will be unlocked, with a limited time of 1% discount. Countdown 71 hours 59 minutes, the bold black font flashed across the retina, causing Hinayama to pause as she prepared for the lottery. A 10% discount promotion is a common consumption trap used by businesses. Huinai is not easily fooled by this. The most important thing is that even a discount is not enough. To unlock any captain of the 13th team, he also needs a fresh corpse. The overnight corpses soaked in formalin water are not qualified. No one can stop me from drawing the lottery unless. After touching every corpse companion in the morgue that had been soaked in formalin water and receiving feedback that was judged to be not fresh, Huina breathed a long sigh of relief. He was immune to this shameless consumption trap, and his attention returned to the lottery wheel. Creaking, the metal door of the morgue made a slight piercing sound as it rubbed against the ground. A ninja wearing a foggy forehead walked in, and then his face suddenly changed. He stared in amazement at a person inside the room who was wet all over, covered in cracked white porcelain. At the same time, his hands were inserted into formalin water, gently caressing the body while sighing. The scene is extremely thrilling. Huinai saw that the lottery was interrupted once again. He looked at the ninja who pushed the door in, and his expression under the mask was inexplicably strange. He slapped his lips and said suspiciously, "Ha! Is this fate?" End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Unlocking or lottery, this is a question. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Unlocking or lottery, this is a question. Corpses are valuable and cannot be casually discarded, either destroyed or recycled. This is a value that every ninja village follows, and the logic behind it is created by the twisted technology tree of the ninja community. When it comes to touching corpses, ninjas are definitely professionals. Some even decipher corpses, reverse engineer valuable information, and even use them as materials for recycling, which are the basic skills of some industry veterans. So, the bodies produced in the blood mist cannot be casually buried or burned. Even if some of them were already in a state of disrepair, they were still picked up and transported back to the morgue in the secret laboratory. The latest batch of corpses sent in were from the Kaguya clan, who rebelled 3 days ago, and the one who handled them was the guardian of the corpse vault, Takeda. Takeda. Male, 31 years old, Nakano, a commoner ninja. Unlike the majority of people in the village who dare not speak up about the blood mist policy, Takeda is a loyal supporter of the policy. He likes to see those once arrogant blood successor families quietly immersed in glass barrels soaked in formalin water. Takeda's favorite thing to do is to reassemble the fragmented corpses like a jigsaw puzzle, and then transport them to the dissecting table in the laboratory for dissection. This can be considered a benefit of his management of the morgue. At this moment it was already dark and all his colleagues at the experimental base had finished work. Takeda walked towards the morgue, intending to cultivate his hobbies. So, he pushed open the slightly rusty iron door. Caught off guard. A wet humanoid creature, as if covered in white scales, stood in the middle of a pile of glass buckets soaked in corpses. A expressionless mask was facing him, and a muttering voice came from beneath the mask. I couldn't hear it clearly, but the surprise in that tone made Empress Muto's heart cold. This sentence was in perfect harmony with when he signed for the newly stored body 3 days ago. At that time, there was a broken and unsightly body, and he exclaimed with joy, "Ha! Can I just put this broken body back together?" Thinking of this, Takeda suddenly realized that there was an empty glass bucket, which should be the high-difficulty dismembered corpse inside. He was coming to complete the puzzle tonight, so why was it so empty that there wasn't even a piece of debris inside? What about my big puzzle? Did someone steal it? Are there people who share the same interests and hobbies as me? Takeda swallowed his saliva, feeling a bit nervous in his heart. Anyone who discovers a missing corpse in the morgue at night but an extra monster covered in scales can't help but feel a surge of hair in his heart. He doesn't associate with ghosts and monsters, it's already a basic ninja skill that is being supported. What kind of person are you? Why are you here? Takeda pulled out Kyumo and made an attacking posture on his chest. Huinai looked at Muto Tian with some distress. He couldn't answer both of the others' questions truthfully. In theory, he was already a dead person, and why he appeared here after his death? It had to be asked to the person carrying the body. He also inexplicably crawled out of the glass bucket, still dripping with formalin water. Huinaijin chose to remain silent. Countless predecessors have used experience to tell later generations that as long as you choose to remain silent, the other person will come up with a suitable answer on their own. Are you really feeling guilty and afraid to answer? Muto Tian furrowed his brows and calmed down at the moment. The opponent doesn't have the forehead protection mark of Wuin village on their body. The scales all over their body may be some strange ninjutsu or bloodline. Are they spies from other villages infiltrating to steal the remains of the bones and veins? The Huiyi clan is famous for their corpses and veins, and is an exceptionally powerful bloodline that is coveted by other villages. They want to steal 1 or 2 corpses and take them back to study the complete explanation. After all, Kaguya Naruto was forced to stop the lottery. He observed Takeda's expression and kindly reminded him, "You're really putting me in a difficult position to break in without knocking on the door. So, can you pretend not to see me?" Faced with a destiny of delivering goods to his doorstep, Kaguya Naomi is restraining himself, which proves that he is a good god of death emitting human radiance. Takeda was taken aback for a moment. He couldn't figure out what medicine was being sold in the gourd of the strange person in front of him. He grabbed the position of Kowu in his palm and quietly attached a detonating talisman. "Don't be so excited, it's just a misunderstanding, I don't have any malicious intent." Hinayama saw Takeda's small movements in his eyes, and he comforted him gently while quickly clicking on his character template. Name: Hui Naijin Life Form. Death God, Perfect Level Armed Skeleton, Identity 1/3. Lord of the Jingling Court, Spirit King, Card 0/3 Equipment. 0 of 6 Life. 1660/1660 Energy. 910/910 Strength. 17 Agility. 21 Spirit. 30 Skill. Corpse Veined Righteous Skeleton, Perfect Overlay of Corpse Vein and Armed Righteous Skeleton, Death God Junior Ability Package, /Fist and Go Ghost, a rudimentary template without any explanation. Understanding relies solely on guessing. The font is pitch black, with no room for +step operation, and the skill introduction is also as precious as gold. What's even more despicable is that the skill bar does not directly display some ninjutsu learned from the original body. Is it unworthy or discriminatory? Take a gentle breath. The cards and equipment are all empty, and my abilities only add a Death God package. I am still a beginner, and my identity as the Spirit King is like a whiteboard. From beginning to end, I have been cheating and drawing big cakes for me. Huinai saw an extra memory in his mind out of thin air. In his memory, he ate and slept every day, constantly practicing chopping techniques, free combat, instant steps, ghost paths, within the 40 sequence, and whenever he was happy or unhappy, he would pull his bones out of the body and freely whip, trample, and sharpen them. This memory lasts for 200 years. The lifespan of the Grim Reaper is so dull and plain. At the same time as the memory emerges, the perfect level armed skeleton also instantly completes the matching, completely digesting the memory into the body's instinct. 200 years of tedious training are enough to hone any skill into a reflexive instinct. In an instant, the 200-year experience bonus made Huinai see that his whole person seemed to have deteriorated. Although the data on the attribute panel did not change, he could easily kill himself 1 second ago, which is difficult to estimate. The difference is roughly equivalent to the same hero, making the difference between bronze and the actual combat of Daida absurd. Harmonious network, reporting and fighting. However, this still cannot change Kaguya Naomi's judgment on the nature of cheating and being stingy. The so-called lottery, the so-called lifting of restrictions, is actually. Do you want to become stronger? Then let's spend money on it, and the limited time discount translated into adult language means that there is a reward for the first charge. In the eyes of Takeda, there was no time to even blink his eyelids. The strange person with scales on his face remained motionless, but it seemed as if he had been replaced by a new person. The aura emanating from his body suddenly changed, adding a strange and heavy weight, making it feel inexplicably oppressive. With a tremble of his hand, Takeda struggled to throw and shoot. At the same time, his hands quickly formed a seal, using the ninjutsu technique called mist hidden. The water vapor in the air quickly condensed into mist, blocking his view. Almost in the moment when the mist shrouded him, Takeda saw the strange man on the opposite side raise his hand, and white scales exploded and peeled off, revealing the human palm. Then, the pale bone fingers penetrated the palm and turned into white bone claws, grabbing at the shooting Kyumo. At the moment when Bone Claw grasped Kuwu, the bones twisted forward and closed together, like a cannibal flower opening its mouth and swallowing Kuwu along with its detonating talisman. The tightly sealed bones sealed off the explosion, and only a dull vibration came out. Takeda's eyes were stunned, unable to believe his own eyes. Bones. Braided into flowers. Isn't the bone vein just dead? The three questions about quality appeared uncontrollably in Takeda's brain. Don't make too much noise at night, please leave quietly. The sound reached his ears, as if there was still a faint warmth lingering. The sweat on Takeda's face stood up, and the sound was right in front of him. In the trembling afterglow, he caught a glimpse of a figure almost pressing against his ear. As the distance approached, he realized that the height of the figure was only up to his chin, a dwarf or a child. Just as he raised his arm, a finger gently pressed against his temple, and the smell of gunpowder still lingered on his finger. Bang! Under the mask, the lips are disguised as onomatopoeic words, the index finger is on the chest, the fingertip is cracked to reveal the muzzle, and a white bone bullet is fired. The bullet that shot through his skull splattered blood, extinguishing the shock in Takeda's eyes and causing him to fall heavily to the ground. Thank you, I will make good use of your body. Halfway squatting down, the blood-stained fingertips touched the body, and the external hanging gave a quality inspection label of qualified body. Huina saw a curve on the corner of her mouth, ignoring the soul floating from the body. The soul that ordinary people cannot see appears in the eyes of the Grim Reaper, and seems to be gradually transparent and disappearing under some kind of traction. Has the soul been dragged to the Pure Land? The whiteboard Spirit King, who has not fully unlocked the Jingling Court, is not yet ready to compete with Pure Land for customers. He released the soul of Mudo Tian, but only left behind the opponent's cheap body. Killed by the Grim Reaper, the body and soul are annihilated together, which is common sense. However, Takeda's soul can still return to the Pure Land, which is of course attributed to the kindness of Kaguya Naomi. He always remembers that he is a good Grim Reaper. You have a preliminary understanding of the meaning of the cheat name. Only by correctly learning to be a good villain can you live to the end. You initiated the event. Kind Reaper, 1 out of 10, tip. After the event is completed, the rating will be based on the 5 elements of the completion process, and the rating will affect the final reward. The 5 elements of the mastermind behind the scenes are black, dirty, lies, falsehood, and and then form a pentagonal pattern that can intuitively display the good character of Kaguya Narimi. Hui Yanai saw his eyes twirling and he immediately understood the central idea conveyed by the cheat request. He was originally a bit conflicted about which character this first corpse was used to unlock, but now he has a definite answer in his heart. Discovering fresh corpses can be converted to 2,000 achievement points. Is it necessary to carry out a reconstruction of its remains? Yes, please select the unblocked object and pay achievement points. In the 13 rounds of protecting the court, several captains who met the conditions for lifting the lockdown frequently flashed their unlocking icons on their heads, like young ladies throwing themselves in arms. To be honest, Hui Naijian was heartbroken at each of them, but there was only one bait left. He could only fish for the most attractive and green fish in the pond first. I choose to lift the ban as a pure and adorable newcomer. I am so excited to publish the book. I heard from my seniors that the new book needs more care. So, I shyly ask for a ticket. End of this chapter. Chapter 3 Unlocking. Squinting eyes are monsters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Unlocking. Squinting eyes are monsters. A gloomy black aura drifted out from the corpse of Takeda, and his cheeks and facial features were flattened into white paper by invisible forces. Then, as if it were a painting, the eerie raised and angular texture gradually outlined his slender eyes, delicate nose, and thin lips like willow leaves. A very delicate mask is being painted on a blank face, with eyes still open and the skin not yet formed. The corners of the mouth have already pursed a false curve, as if this smile has long been accustomed to blending with the mask on the face. The body was also being pulled and deformed like clay, like an invisible palm, molded into a body shape that matched it perfectly. Unleashed original price of 37,000 points, found qualified corpses discounted by 2,000 points, and promoted by 1 discount. Actual payment of achievement points is 3,500. Calculation formula, 37,000.2000, asterisk 10% equals 3,500, character release. Shimaru Silver. You have gained loyalty from the captain of the 13th and 3rd teams of the Guardian Court, Shimaru In, P.S. Under the constraint of cheats, this character cannot betray in any form. As the subtitles flashed through my mind, the small characters of P.S. were highlighted in red. Look, it was impossible betrayal rather than impossible betrayal. Hui Naijian was discerning the hidden meaning behind the words, feeling lost in thought. The twisting and reshaping of the corpse will take 2 more minutes, and there is nothing to do. Hui Nana slowly removes the porcelain pieces covered on her body with her hand, revealing the Death Overlord costume that comes with the Iroi. The style is a flowing kimono paired with long pants, and the whole body is as black as ink, symbolizing death and mystery. Behind her is a pale feather weave, banner, that covers all the way to the bottom of her calves, and in the middle is a black diamond pattern printed with the obscure and ancient corpse soul language. Wang. Only the mask on his face has not been removed yet. Even though it is the first time in his 2 lifetimes that he aspires to be a mastermind behind the scenes, Kaguya Narimi understands a common sense that those who are behind the scenes cannot easily show their faces, and their character will collapse. The only thing that troubles him is that he does not possess the 5 elements of being a mastermind behind the scenes. That is, black. The heart is black. Conscience or something, it doesn't exist. Dirty. The means must be dirty. I just don't wash my hands, is that also wrong? Lie. Rumors abound. You were all deceived by me, didn't you expect it, pseudo? I am a good person. How could I possibly be a bad person? Een. Just entrust your life to me and it will be stable. Backstabbing or something, I hate it the most. This is the essential underworld pentagon for the mastermind behind the scenes. Hui Nai is seeking truth from facts. How could he possibly possess these rare abilities? He doesn't have any of them. In his previous life, he was a horror film director. Although he was best at portraying villains, explaining the emotional journey of victims, and helping actresses transition into roles, all of his dramas were guaranteed to pass the broadcasting and television review, and in this life, as soon as he opened his eyes, he fell into a dangerous situation, surrounded by a group of crazy relatives with serious self-destructive tendencies and calcified brains. All he heard all day was fighting and killing, but he still had a bright heart and was not assimilated. Even if his hands were stained with blood while trying to survive, it was still a forced self-defense. Fundamentally, it has been argued that Kaguya Narimi is a good person. Death God, with cheats binding him to play the high-end villain behind the scenes, is it because he made a serious wrong judgment on his soul? External cheat. Being a villain is not about filming, otherwise it's about talking on paper. So, I need a companion who can guide me on the road, just like Sima Yi needs Chao Shuang, Zhou Shuren needs Lu Sun, and Monkey Flying Sun Slaying needs Shitsuan Tuanzang. Hui Nai thought to herself. His favorite mentor and friend, in his heart is naturally Sosuke Aizen. However, the other party is so reserved that they don't even show the price. Hui Naijian had to suspect that Aizen is still a young child, so he ultimately chose Maruyan, a naturally antagonistic character. Squinting their eyes, they are all cunning monsters. It was as if he had heard his admiration from the bottom of his heart. On Maruyan's delicate face, which was as delicate as a mask, her slender eyes suddenly opened, and her light blue pupils reflected faintly in the nearby glow of the night. The terrifying spiritual pressure, accompanied by a sinister killing intent, instantly shrouded and dissipated without a trace in the blink of an eye. The speed almost made Hui Yanai think it was an illusion, but he naturally wouldn't be so naive. Is it the real idea exposed in the moment of awakening? He wanted to kill me and then gave up, because of the constraints of cheating. The expression on Hui Ye's face was also hidden behind the mask. After 200 years of dry training memories, not only was it the digestion of skills, but also his temperament seemed to have gone through the erosion of time, quietly transforming into a deep pool, calm and profound. He calmly glanced at Shimaru Yin, who had already squinted his eyes, and all his true emotions were replaced by a false smile. Shimaru Yin watched with great interest as her plasticine-like body gradually sculpted, ignoring the intense pain she felt from being pinched and molded. It wasn't until her entire body was completely shaped that the lingering pain slowly dissipated. Armed righteous skeleton. No, this is not a low-quality product made by Nikali. There is no sense of repulsion between the soul and the container, and there is no sense of obstruction in the exchange between the spirit and the outside world. Is this a perfect righteous skeleton with theoretical compatibility of 100%? It not only does not hinder the recovery rate of the soul, but also adds a strong outer layer of protection to the soul. Of course, on the other hand, this container is also a kind of confinement. As long as I have any bad thoughts, the body will automatically strip me of my control. This is the method of the new Spirit King. Although the feeling of spiritual pressure is still weak, the method is quite strange. Shimaru Yin squinted his eyes and a contract appeared in his consciousness. The contract was densely written and strictly stipulated his obligations, such as executing the orders of the new Spirit King, not betraying him, and being bound to the life and death of the Spirit King. Only the Spirit King could voluntarily terminate this contract. As for the authenticity of this contract, Shimaru Yin had already experimented with it at the moment of awakening. The taste was not pleasant, and he could see that the font on the contract was actually countless wriggling insects, densely infiltrating his soul. It seems that it is not just building a worm's nest. At this moment, both my body and soul have betrayed me on the surface and inside. Is this the trust of the new Spirit King? It seems that before finding a way to terminate the contract, my best choice is to obediently listen and play the most loyal captain of the 3rd Squadron to protect the Spirit King. Shimaru Yin choked silently, but fortunately, he was already familiar with playing loyalty. In addition, some of the remaining memories of Takeda's body were also digested by Shimaru Yin. Although only a small part remained, it still made Shimaru realize that this was a completely unfamiliar new world. And being able to reach a new world was a wild hope that even the terrifying guy Sosuke Aizen couldn't achieve at the time. The profound thoughts behind it were extremely terrifying, and the curvature of the corners of Shimaru's mouth became even warmer. He stood up and slowly sorted out the folds of his clothes, which were the same style of death suit as Hinayama Narima. The difference was that the diamond pattern on the back symbolized the symbol of the Sanfan team. 3. The process was very quiet, even a bit eerie. Huey Naijin also did not break the silence, and he also received the content of the contract and related information in his mind. So, he patiently waited. A person who didn't know how long he had been sealed in the shackles of time would wake up to accept a superior he didn't know how to meet, as well as a mandatory and binding contract, ultimately requiring some time to digest the company's system. The legal representative of the company, Jingling, Huey Naijin, firmly believes that HR, cheat, can help migrant workers, Marian City, to complete their onboarding training as soon as possible. Huey Nai saw the smile on the corner of Shimaru Yin's mouth becoming increasingly friendly. She watched the other person tidy up their clothes, take a step back, then hold the short knife in her right hand, caress her heart with her left hand, and slowly bow to greet her. The whole process was indescribably elegant and smooth, like a respectful subordinate. I never expected that the first one to be awakened from the seal would be me, who ranked bottom in the 13th team. What a surprising surprise. Thank you for Lord Lingwang's trust. Marubeni will definitely do everything possible to do everything for Lord Lingwang. True Movie Emperor, Squinting Eyes Online. You are too humble. Among the 13 times of protecting the court, the one I most admire is Captain Shimaru Silver. I have only inherited the identity of the Spirit King, but my strength and ability are far from enough to lead the Jingling Court. In the future, I will need more guidance from Captain Shimaru Silver. Kaguya Naijin said sincerely, please don't call me the Spirit King, just call me Naijin. This is not allowed. Shimaru quickly refused. The identity of the Spirit King is extremely noble. No captain of the 13 guards dare to directly call out the name of the Spirit King, otherwise it will break the law of the Jingling Court. He should be sent to the Repentance Palace to repent. Let's change it to the name of the President. In the future, a roundtable council will be set up in the Jingling Court, and all major matters will be voted on by the council. Each team leader will hold a seat, and everyone can work together to restore the glory of the Jingling Court in this new world more quickly. Hui Nai saw holding high the banner of democracy and firmly resisting the title of Spirit King, which is a second-class title. The previous one named Ling Wang was all made into a stick, unlucky, sigma, degree winky face. You should have already realized that this is a strange world. Hui Nai changed her title and quickly shifted the topic. Yes, I can breathe in the air of this world, filled with unfamiliar and decaying odors everywhere. This is a world without the guidance of the Grim Reaper, where both the soul and human nature are filled with filth and ugliness. This sentence by Ayumi Shimaru is not adulterated, and I have absorbed some memory fragments from this body, which also confirms that this is a distorted world that needs to be purified by the quiet spirit court. I see the President. Before that, we need to find a way to escape from the mist of blood, said Kaguya Naomi, satisfied with the subjective initiative demonstrated by Ayumi Shimaru in giving the first command. Of course, President Naijin. Shimaru quickly took on the role and said competent, I think just a little bit of movement is enough to cover our departure. What's the solution? Void. Shimaru Yin's eyes habitually narrowed into a slit, and her voice couldn't hear any ripples. I'm curious, shouldn't ninjas, creatures with hollow and twisted hearts, become void after death? Huey saw her fingertips rubbing against the mask on her face, probably infected at close range, and her eyes unconsciously narrowed. Damn it. It's a feeling of excitement. Thank you for the exquisite cover made by Yuyu, although it cannot pass the review haha, it is very. Once born, twice mature, cute and bold in seeking votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Death's Blacklist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Death's Blacklist. In the blood mist shrouded in the darkness, it was like a ghost city, with empty streets and bleak winds. Rebellion and suppression were woven into a play of white terror that was staged intermittently. Everyone had to stand in line to perform, and no one could escape tickets and be absent. The on-stage chief director of this play is the fourth-generation Mizukiage Goju Yakura, which is too much for the behind-the-scenes producers to say in a single word. A few days ago, the Huiyi clan was fortunate enough to play a rebellious role, which can be seen as adding a touch of color to this play. Fear lingers in the hearts of every living person like lingering echoes. Wuin village is under curfew and does not even need to be implemented. Two figures, one tall and one short, walked against the edge of the building, their black robes blending with darkness. Their footsteps were light and silent, and their breath converged to the extreme, as if two lifeless corpses were walking in the darkness. There are not many patrol posts in the village, but there are dark ninjas stationed 24 hours a day at the intersection of entering and exiting the village. Shimaru looked up at the moon shrouded in thick fog and turned to Kaguya Narimi, saying, "The moon is dark and the wind is high." Kaguya Narimi, behind the mask, sighed and did not directly refuse the suggestion from Shimaru. Isn't the transformation of the void taking 72 hours? Void is a monster formed by the distortion and emptiness of the soul, and ninjas covered in blood and whose souls have long been distorted and incomplete may have been half void even if they were dressed in human skin. Shimaru spoke roughly, but his tone was meaningful. What we need to do is help half-void free from the confinement of their bodies and give them free breathing, which should also be their desire. In terms of understanding manufacturing of virtuality, Kaguya Narimi will not doubt the authority of Marubeni in this regard. Ah, is that so? Huinai hesitated in her tone, but this still cannot change the process of giving birth to the void. It's just creating slaughter, right? This is not right. Shimaru was shocked in his heart. He almost thought that his ear was sick. Is this successor, the Spirit King, discussing the right and wrong of killing with him? Is this a fear of conscience being condemned? Is Huinai a kind-hearted god of death? Of course not. This world is filled with resentment and distortion, and the perpetrators of everything are these ninjas. Therefore, this is by no means a wrong killing, but rather exposing the deformed and ugly souls of ninjas to the world. In fact, it is a form of redemption and purification, but I see the president. Shimaru qualified to play the role of a loyal subordinate, and even to make this explanation more trustworthy, he slightly imitated the speaking style of Sosuke Aizen in his memory. Magic power max. Huinai was convinced in an instant and suddenly realized, so my understanding is too narrow. I understand now. Since it's purification and redemption, let me make the first list of personnel. I know which people need purification more. As the words fell to the ground, Huinai took out a notebook from her arms and bit her finger to quickly write a string of names and stories behind them. The writing was smooth and seamless, as if she had silently written countless times. Chanting Fungu. This person is cruel and ruthless. He has repeatedly used his companions as bait in missions, without any sympathy or compassion, and even without any sense of morality. During a meal, he intentionally spat a mouthful of thick phlegm onto a passerby, but refused to apologize. His attitude is bad and lacks education and purification. Home address. XXXX.XXX, single and living alone Jushin male second. Greedy and cunning, most of his companions who carried out tasks with him were dissatisfied with him. According to a source, this person, as the task leader, relied on his seniority and often shamelessly deducted task rewards from team members, and should be purified. Home address. XXXX.XXX, single and living alone Neige Nyojiro. He has a serious antisocial personality, often spreads separatist thoughts and remarks, and has repeatedly insulted the entire Kaguya clan behind his back. According to a passerby, his words are extremely vulgar and vulgar. Obscene language can cause physical discomfort and should be purified. Home address. XXXX.XXX, two brothers living together, ***** Kong, holding a weapon and showing off in the market. He is accustomed to seducing good men and women, causing instability in family relationships and refusing to change. A kind-hearted single man, with the courage to raise a female tiger by himself, wanted to provide physical and mental education to comfort him, but was instead mocked by him, causing serious psychological trauma. He can be said to be a model of not understanding good people and willingly falling, and must be redeemed. Home address. XXXX.XXX, single. Living alone. Shimaru stared blankly at the names of a few or 10 characters written down by Kaguya Narimi without hesitation. How come I feel like I've been tricked? Who gave me the courage to think that President Narimi has a kind nature just now? Shimaru looked at Hui Yanai, who seemed to be still unsatisfied, and stopped writing. His palm, which took the notebook, was a bit stiff. The light and thin pages of paper seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. He seemed, probably, to have caught a glimpse of Hui Yanai's true face hidden behind the mask. It takes such a careful eye to hold on to grudges in order to memorize all these trivial matters to heart. Shimaru quickly scanned the contents of the notebook, and strangely, in the biographies, after each name, there was an anonymous person who casually portrayed a passerby, kind-hearted person, and informant. It was difficult for him not to doubt that these people all had a common identity behind them. As a loyal subordinate, should I ask this question, or should I pretend to be confused to fit my personality? Even when pretending to be by Sosuke Aizen's side, Shimaru had never experienced such confusion. Time is limited, so I have only written a little for now. Hui Naijian felt a little regretful in her heart. He looked up at Maruyan with a stiff smile, understood what the other person was asking, and explained earnestly, "Don't worry, these passers-by are not me anymore. I chose this group of people to purify purely out of objectivity, without any subjective factors." Shimaru fully believed and exclaimed from the bottom of his heart, being able to keep countless unrelated people's affairs firmly in mind, but seeing the president is really remarkable. In your hands, Jingling will definitely regain its former glory. I just have a pair of eyes that are good at discovering, Hui Yanai replied humbly, as if a light was flickering in her eyes. Are these names enough? If not enough, I can still do it. I can understand President Naijian's desire to bring redemption to them, but it's probably too late before dawn. We can only choose a few lucky ones to redeem them, and the rest of us may have to sink into the ocean of suffering in this world for another period of time. In a daze, Shimaru saw the shadow of Sosuke Aizen from Kaguya Narimi's body, but there seemed to be some differences. He inexplicably felt tired, but accurately selected the 8 names corresponding to the most harmful and insulting passers-by from those complex stories. Very good. Hui Yanai saw that she was very satisfied with the abilities and qualities shown by Shimaru, and then casually picked out a name. Add one more, just enough for 9. Event. Kind Reaper, 1 out of 10, Hui Naijian carefully calculated and thought that we should purify everything anyway. It's better to try to complete this event together, and it will be more enjoyable in one fell swoop. 9 is not an integer, what's the point of rounding it up? Shimaru thought this was another strange hobby of President Naijian, and did not ask foolish questions. He scanned the selected names on the list and synchronously drew an action map in his mind. The first long vine Wind Valley. The desperate sound of death is conveyed by the wind, and the dark robe raises ripples in the night. Listen, death, knocking on the door, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Birth of Void. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Birth of Void. Thump. Thump. Short knocking on the door and heartbeat at the same frequency. Changting Fungu woke up from a nightmare. It was a strange and realistic dream. In the dream, it is your home. The furniture is displayed in the same place, as if in reality. He lay on his own bed, feeling his chest suffocated and unable to breathe, as if someone was pressing against him and unable to move. The muscles and bones feel stiff and numb, as if the body has been injected with anesthesia to lose contact block by block. He was terrified and desperately wanted to open his eyes, but his eyelids were like rusty-locked rolling shutter doors, and he exerted all his strength to barely open a narrow slit. The field of vision was covered by the sticky rust, and only a blurry figure could be seen standing by his bed. The person beside the bed seemed to notice him opening his eyes, so he bent down and pressed his face against him. That was a pale face without wrinkles or pores, and a chilling smile seemed to be painted on that face. For some reason, he felt that what he saw was not a person, but a black and white portrait of a dead person, with a chilling sensation. He suddenly opened his eyes. What caught the eye was a lifeless face with tightly closed eyes. It was his own face, while he himself lay on his body, his hands twisted into sticky claws, tearing at his body one by one. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere on the bed and walls. Is the body me? Who am I who tore up the body? Did I kill myself? No, I heard a knock on the door just now. Then, there was a short knife that used its handle to pierce into its own heart, pierced through its back, and brought out a rope chain. Then, the handle reversed and exposed the blade, cutting the rope chain into pieces. One end of the rope chain was originally wrapped around it. Memory is strange and absurd, incomplete, making it difficult for him to distinguish whether he is still in a dream or always in reality. He looked down blankly and saw that the chest of the corpse was a shattered flesh hole, inside which was a contaminated heart emitting a foul odor but still beating. Dong! Dong dong! Did he hear a knock on the door or a heartbeat? Is this corpse dead or struggling to survive? He looked down at himself in confusion, only to see that there was also an ugly hole in his chest, filled with white peristalsis growing wildly. As he tore at the original body, the white peristalsis seemed to be stimulated, spreading and eroding towards his own body at an astonishing speed. Who am I? Who am I? I am Nagato Valley. His face twisted with pain, and his mouth unconsciously howled as he struggled in the final struggle. The futile struggle, in my experience, he can only sustain for up to 3 hours. Standing by the bedside, Shimaru looked for a while longer. After all, he was the first ninja to transform into a void, which had a certain commemorative significance. He turned around and nodded at Kaguya Narimi, who was sitting in a chair, indicating that the first target had been purified and could leave. As if watching a horror game CG footage, Kaguya Naruto realized that her previous career as a director had once again violated her professional habits. In her heart, she silently rated the film by Maruyan in terms of lighting, storyline, special effects, editing, and other aspects. Duban 7.3. For bloody and restrictive scenes, Hinayana has developed a strong immune system since her previous life as a director, and in this life, she feels a sense of alienation from the whole world that is out of place. He used to see this world like a cold filter, but now even his body has been transformed into a skeleton, and his soul's temperature towards this world naturally decreases. As a director, he has conducted a character analysis of the character that he must play, Kazuya Natsumi, as follows. A crazy family with calcified brain matter, a village filled with bloody rule, this is the purest sensory experience brought to him by this world after crossing over, pure without any attachment or attachment. Without finding emotional resonance, it is naturally difficult to have a sense of immersion in this world. He is like an NPC stripped of emotions, watching this equally ruthless world with cold eyes. The emergence of cheats is like loading a system into an NPC, injecting new vitality into it. When a ninja, he is forced. When death is a god, it is also forced. He doesn't actually like either of them, but as a director, he is willing to follow the career plan formulated by cheating and weave a colorful storyline based on this monotonous and boring world. Director is the career he loved in his previous life. If he could also strive for it in this life, perhaps it would be the last gift left to him by his former self now, so, this time, I can count it as directing and acting, action. Huinai tapped her finger on the mask on her face, making a crisp, click-click sound to simulate the sound of setting up a board. Nagato Toyotomi was also cleverly attracted by the sound and entered this filming. It's very painful, I feel like I've changed my body, not knowing whether I'm dead or alive, even blurring my past memories and forgetting who I am. This feeling must be very painful, believe me, I have had similar experiences, and only I can understand your anger and pain in this world. The hollow and pale mask only had 2 holes in its eyes dug out, like a face without facial features. No one would believe any word spoken under this mask, but the last bit of thinking ability left by Nagato Wind Valley convinced him. Who would let that ghost-like mask be the same as his own face being eroded and covered? You, me, who? Half of the face of Nagato Wind Valley has been eroded by the mask, and his dry and hoarse voice is struggling to speak, gradually losing the ability to speak. I am the person who came to help you, my friend who helped you rescue yourself from the body of Nagato Wind Valley. Huinai saw standing at a distance of 1 step and raised her hand to point at the pitiful corpse on the bed. She said softly, that corpse is Nagato Wind Valley, a very cruel and twisted villain, and you are a poor person imprisoned by him. I saw the struggle in your soul, so I came to help you free yourself from his body. Others. Me. Monsters. No, the most twisted monster is always a person, and you are not a monster. You are not wrong, it is this person and this world that pollutes your soul, it is the people outside who drag the world into the abyss, it is the whole world, and what can you do wrong? You look so helpless, so lonely. Hui Naijian's voice was magnetic, and his words were full of human kindness and compassion. Standing at the door, Ayumi Shimaru had a strange look in his eyes. He was very puzzled as to what the president was doing. Please, weren't the people on the list chosen by you? Who is the reason for the miserable situation in Nagato Wind Valley? Don't you know in your heart, who are you planning to show this compassionate posture to? It's not necessary to act for me, is it? What do you want to play for Nagato Wind Valley? Of course, playing the role of an excellent subordinate requires learning to bury doubts in the depths of one's heart, while carefully using spiritual pressure to restrain Nagato Kanzuya, in order to prevent this brainless virtual entity from making irrational actions during the transformation process. Hui Naijian was very satisfied with the performance of Shimaru-in and continued to say to Katsuya Nagato. Even if the whole world thinks you're a monster, I won't, because I know very well that it's not you, my friend, who caused all of this. I know you will soon forget what I said, and you will receive complete redemption and purification, but I hope that before that, you can feel that in the last rationality of your life, you have a friend to accompany you through the final loneliness. This friend is Hui Naijian. And you are not a monster, you have a special name. Su. Nagato Kazutani knelt on the bed, feeling his soul cracking open. He looked at the corpse under his body with one eye and at Kaguya Nagasaki with the other. Slowly, both eyes were covered in white erosion, and the pale and smooth mask only reflected the same pale mask. Your kindness touched the last remnants of Nagato Wind Valley, event. Kind Reaper, 2 out of 10, it was getting late, and Hui Yenai saw that there were still a few friends who needed him to see them off. He bid farewell to Nagato Wind Valley and politely closed the door to leave. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Extracting Skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Extracting Skills. 2 hours passed by in a flash. Event. Kind Reaper. October 10th, on his deathbed, the friends that Hui Yi saw repeatedly recognized his kind qualities and did not waste his sleep time, helping them obtain redemption and purification of their souls. Win-win. All the door-to-door visits were considered satisfactory and smooth. Even with 1 or 2 friends who had a rather irritable temper in the middle, they quickly showed their friendliest understanding under the persuasion of squinting eyes, and gained the precious friendship of Kaguya Narimi. The only regret is that Kong, this woman, is not at home. It's also because Hui Na is too naive. Otherwise, how could he have thought that late at night is the time when this woman goes out to commit murder, so how could she stay at home? Honestly, Kong had no idea what he had missed, and this opportunity was mercilessly passed on to someone else by Hui Naijian. I converted 9 virtual characters in a row. Apart from enduring the strange performance habit of the Naijian president intermittently, everything else went smoothly. Shimaru also wore a joyful expression on her face throughout the experiment and wrote the following record in the notebook of the experiment. Ninjas. A disabled race of people who have lost themselves characteristics. Emotional monotony and lacking complete and abundant human nature, easily manipulated and bewitched. The distortion of soul emptiness is an inevitable result of long-term emotional suppression. After breaking the causal chain, the transformation of emptiness will be completed in a very short time, predicted time of 2.3 hours, conclusion. A high-quality material that is very suitable for transforming into a virtual one to be proven. Different world rules lead to differences in abilities after virtualization. Is it visible to the naked eye after virtualization? What are the characteristics of the form of expression? The possibility of advancing upwards after virtualization, etc. Similarly, after leaving the scene of the crime, Hui Nai saw the settlement reward for the incident and immediately understood what it means to have good karma for a good person. You have completed the event. Kind Reaper, 10 out of 10, event settlement, based on the Pentagon of the Underworld. You have demonstrated the basic elements of being a mastermind behind the scenes, namely Black 83, Dirty 50, Lie 71, False 85, 40, conclusion. Although my heart is dark and full of lies, that is just my poor protective color. If you have a pair of eyes that are good at discovering the essence, how could you not see through my helpful nature? Only friends with the same kind heart will gain my friendship. Score 329, impact coefficient of this event. 3. Final score of 329 times 3 is equal to 987. You have obtained 987 achievement points. Darkness in my heart, full of lies. Are you talking about me? Why does this cheat always maliciously slander me? Is it taking advantage of me to deduct my score, and what is the basis for judging this impact coefficient? Without explanation, is it for better covert operations? I may have suffered a big loss. Hui sighed and worried, silently enduring it, recalling the fear of being dominated by a salary slip that would never be understood in her previous life. Silently calculating in her heart, the current remaining achievement points, 1187 points, just exceeded the 1000 point threshold. Suddenly, Hui Nai couldn't control her evil thoughts and decided to draw a prize. I have already unlocked a captain-level character, which is equivalent to first emptying my family and marrying a legitimate wife, and then using the remaining private money to touch the club. I cannot say he is scumbag. After all, the arrangement of priorities is very well balanced. Strive to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. It's not prostitution or gambling, it's just to test one's own attributes, whether it's a European emperor or a non-chieftain. This is very important. The monotonous script of saving money and unlocking it step by step is too orthodox. It's like a drop in the price for the mastermind behind the scenes. Seeing a fire in her heart and a light in her eyes, the roulette wheel whizzed around. This roulette draw rewards are all from anime or games. The crazy rotation of the roulette wheel is like a club that unveils its mysterious veil. Inside, there are people who are thin and fat, full of slutty energy, playful, willing to refuse and welcome. Cards, equipment, talents, skills, miscellaneous items, and so on, all pass by in front of them, and people are constantly imagining and itching. You have completed a draw, obtaining one of the skill inheritances of the blood demon Stelliger, name. Blood Festival, type. Active skill, quality. A. Details. Release blood to baptize a region, and the ritual will be completed in 2.9 seconds. All enemies within the region will be damaged and silenced. Blue consumption. 120 sacrifice range. 60 damage. 240 continuous silence time. SXS cooling. 12S, note. The blood demon Steliger was a hunter carefully selected through ritual. More precisely, he was the loyal lackey of the evil god Skin Twins. He destroyed several countries and drained the blood of all his subjects for worship. In this process, he honed his blood skills to the extreme. He is a demon who plays with blood. The infused skills were loaded into the armed skeleton, while some memory scenes played in Huey Nijian's mind. He saw a peak towering into the clouds made of blood, with a hunter wearing a ferocious mask and holding a bloody blade in both hands standing in the center of the bloody altar, quiet like a sculpture. As the screen turns, it shows a destroyed country, filled with howls and tears, with corpses and blood flowing on the ground. A figure greedily breathes and walks in it, passing through thick mist of blood in the air. The figure is shrouded in the mist of blood, like a demon. Hiss as if watching an extremely restrictive and bloody movie, Hinayana let out a cold breath upon seeing it. The life of the blood demon Stigl is a life of interpreting villains, worthy of the name of the blood demon. Compared to him, the squinting eyes in front of him can be called a pure white rabbit. Hey! The visual effects released by this skill are too dazzling, and the antagonist is too aggressive. Huey Nijian is really worried that he won't be able to hold it, and he doesn't know how to evaluate his luck now. Should this be considered as the European emperor or a non-chieftainhom? What's going on with this inexplicable restlessness in my heart? Shimaru, who was walking ahead, suddenly felt a chill in his back. He turned his head with a smile, just as he was about to speak, a sharp cry like a baby tore through the silence of the night. The cry was not like a human vocal cord, but like a roar directly from a twisted and resentful soul, echoing back to this world in shock. Born, the first void. Shimaru listened attentively to the ripples in the air, and the corners of her mouth were filled with emotion. It's a friend bidding us farewell. Huey Nijian said that he had received a signal from Nagato Wind Valley. He licked his lips and said solemnly to Shimaru, farewell is always reluctant, so we won't bid farewell in person. Let's leave safely, even if we haven't let down his kindness. Yes, the sound dissipates in the air. I received that the signing station is short. As a cute new one, I am very excited. After modifying the signing status, it will be restored to 2 more days. Tomorrow, I will take a leave and go to the cemetery to collect some wind. Adhering to the attitude of being responsible for writing books, I have decided to find an opportunity to capture a wild virtual one and observe and study it carefully. If I am unable to come back, please burn paper for me. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. By Jew's Wrong Scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. By Jew's Wrong Scene. Swipe the time pointer forward for half an hour. In the cold, damp, and dark underground, a strange white creature was swimming rapidly, like a mayfly drifting in the deep sea, slowly revealing a pale face and a pure white body. Bare without any pores, the muscle contours on the surface of the body appear uneven lines, like a body pieced together with paper and plaster, exuding an indescribable sense of strangeness. Like humans, not like humans. My name is Baiju, an ordinary Baiju. Like countless siblings, no one can distinguish our appearance. Except for our unique black skin, we have all become tragically unified, which has always troubled me. I am Baiju and enjoy thinking. In chronological order, I gave myself the number 404 to showcase my uniqueness. Like many other white-skinned people, we are all governed by the same black skin. A group of white-skinned people are ruled by one black skin, and I always feel that there is something wrong with it. But I have been struggling to find the reason, so before that, I have to endure the exploitation of black skin. I am Baiju 404, a 007 worker. My task is to monitor the mist-hidden village, confirmed that the fourth-generation water shadow Goji Yakura is still being manipulated by illusions, strictly adhere to the policies of Blood Mist Village, and detect hidden dangers and abnormal situations in the village as early as possible. It's simply boring. A dilapidated village that is busy killing itself all day is really nothing new, and everything cannot escape the script drafted by some behind-the-scenes mastermind. The Baiju 404 is like a movie-watching experience that has been exposed by the plot, and the whole process is a bit of a mess. For a Baiju, this is cruel to point out, hey, it's another boring day. No wonder I always feel a chill under my crotch. It turns out it's because I don't have it. Will Heijua have it? Will he be willing to show me? Baiju 404 pondered carefully as he emerged from the dark underground into the pitch-black night. Then, with a skeptical slanted gaze, he looked at a cylindrical tower 100 meters away. Most of the buildings in Wuin village were of this kind that lacked aesthetic appeal, and they didn't look particularly special. But, abnormally black. The buildings were all dark gray, and the background was shrouded in darkness. Even though it was completely indistinguishable in Baiju's eyes, he felt that the building appeared even darker, as if more melanin was converging towards the building in the darkness. More precisely, it was swallowed by a whale into a window on the middle floor of the building. Something's wrong. For some reason, the creature Baiju is particularly sensitive to black. Number 404 can distinguish the color difference in the same black, and he is certain that the black reflected by the building is not the same color as the darkness of the night. A serious person who climbs stairs, jumps out of the window and enters, is in line with the art style of this world. The corner of the wall inside the house cracked and a piece of pitcher plant stubbornly emerged from the crack, growing and spreading like a living creature, revealing Baiju's head. Number 404 never walked through doors, windows, or other humanoid paths. Baiju naturally believed that he was essentially a disguised humanoid mayfly creature. Bloody smell. The room was filled with a familiar smell, and Baiju, who had leaned out half of his body, sniffed his nose. The smell was still fresh, mixed with a hint of putrid corpse, indicating that there was a brand new dead person in the room. A corpse that died at home. Picking up a freshly dead body in the blood mist is not a big deal, it's basic daily routine. Despite the terrifying state of the corpse lying in bed, with a collapsed chest revealing a withered heart, it was as if the flesh and blood inside the heart had been hollowed out, leaving only a shell. The facial muscles were stiff and twisted, and a pair of dead fish protruding from the eye sockets were about to fall out, all indicating that the deceased had experienced extreme fear before. The blood mist ninja has already become numb to death. In theory, they shouldn't show such a fearful expression. The temperature in the room is much colder than outside, and the air entering the nasal cavity is mixed with unknown pheromones, as if there are other unknowns emitting odors in this room besides myself and the dead person. On the bed, there is, Baiju stared intently at the corpse on the bed, more precisely the air above the corpse. The pitch-black transparent air tinged the empty black contours. Oh, the black in this area was particularly deep. Wait a moment, why does the air have contours? Baiju suddenly widened his eyes, realizing that the pitch-black air was clearly a blurry shadow lying on the corpse. No, not only the corpse, but also the furniture, walls, ceiling, and even the corners of the wall where he had just climbed out were covered with a thin layer of black shadow. Due to its thin density, it is difficult for the naked eye to perceive, and because of its large size, it seems to blend in with the darkness around it. Now, I am staying in the same narrow and cramped room with it, my body intimately pressed against my sky. Baiju's scalp felt numb, and the air around him immediately became sticky. His body seemed to feel a cold and damp sensation flowing through his skin. He swallowed and spat, daring to swear with his long life that the black shadow in front of him could never be in the script of Blood Mist. In his heart, there was an unprecedented sense of strangeness. Baiju never imagined that his boring daily life would be shattered by such a terrifying and eerie unfolding. His limited brain capacity didn't know how to describe the trembling in his heart. The Fire Shadow channel mistakenly entered a horror set, causing a major broadcast accident. The shadows are wriggling and condensing, and the darkness in the night seems to be being pulled and condensed into the shadows. Along with the darkness, it is sucked in with the cold energy, which further erodes the soul of the void and shapes a matching body. This energy comes from the composition of the world it belongs to, and the composition of energy in different worlds is difficult to be 100% identical, resulting in subtle differences in the final synthesis and shaping of the void. In the world of the Grim Reaper, the existence of emptiness can be simply included as a combination of empty souls and spiritual beings, that is, soul, emptiness, plus energy, spiritual beings, equals emptiness. In the world of Hokage, the existence of emptiness can be simply analogized as a twisted soul plus chakra, that is, soul, twisted, plus energy, chakra, equals emptiness. Void equals virtual. There should be a detailed explanation in a medical paper here, the differential performance caused by this in-between, if Morobo Silver is the first creator and researcher who still needs to collect data to rigorously verify and infer, then by 404 Ju is fortunate enough to light up the title of the world's first witness. Even if, he himself knows nothing about this. The silhouette of the shadow is like a drawn black border, with a thick ink halo permeating a cold and evil atmosphere. From nothingness to reality, a pair of terrifying eyes emerge from the darkness, accompanied by a tartly clicking sound. A pale face without facial features quickly appears around the eyes, followed by a body that is shrouded in darkness and chakra condensation. Huge, bulky, and deformed. Filling the entire room and still squeezing outward. You can't even confirm what that squeezed over is, and most of the time, you can't imagine it as flesh and blood. As the saying goes, the relationship arises from the heart, and Baiju doesn't believe that the inhumane face in front of him can communicate normally. The gloomy, evil, deformed, and eerie entity is inevitably associated with some endangered species in the ninja realm. Baiju is stunned. Is this not the illegitimate offspring secretly born by a certain tailed beast? But, I haven't heard of Heijua before. The tailed beast has the habit of giving birth. Despite Baiju's extensive knowledge, he could never have imagined that he was witnessing the birth of history with his own eyes. In the biography of a prominent figure who refused to disclose his name in later generations, this day was clearly defined as the anniversary of the invasion of foreign species in the realm of tolerance. Also, this is not the first time. Your brain cells cracked open, and Baiju's words were incoherent. He didn't even know how to pronounce the first word when he opened his mouth, and the breathing space in his chest was crushed. A dark and ferocious tentacle grabbed his head. The contract has been sent out, and it is expected to change the signing status in 2 days. It will be even more exciting when the market starts. Mengxin is so excited, looking for a wave of recommendations and investments. Investment should be free. Firmly resist currency investment. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Shooting Him, Divine Spear. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Shooting Him, Divine Spear. The thick black tentacles grabbed at Baiju like a carrot, and at that moment, although language could not communicate, Baiju was fortunate enough to understand the monster's message in his soul. He just wanted to eat himself. What a simple desire. Pop it. The pitcher plant on top of my head was uprooted and crushed, causing my scalp to cool down. A strand of hair left me, and by 404 Ju Shi's habitual greeting to his mother Hey Ju in his heart turned his body into a white floating substance, sinking into the ground and slipping away. True Voldemort, Baiju disdains facing enemies head on. Bang, bang. The wall peeled off and splattered, holes were smashed into the ground and walls, and shattered stones fell from the sky. The loud sound of falling from nothingness to reality shattered the silence of the night. A house the size of an ugly head squeezed out of a hole, and on the face of a white mask, a ferocious and huge person looked down and saw food running towards them one by one. That was the startled mist and darkness, in contrast, like small fleas jumping from the streets on all sides towards terrifying monsters. What is this? The unnamed dark ninja exclaimed in shock, wearing an animal-patterned mask and looking up at the monster with the mask on its head. Eye contact, loss of voice and roar, shock and resentment colored the monotonous night. The drums of high-altitude falling objects rumbled, and virtual roars squeezed out of the wall holes. Their limbs pierced through the tube tower, and they climbed down fiercely without a match. With a body size of over 5 meters, it is a species that is definitely not recognized in animal guides. Its terrifying shape and massive body, against the backdrop of pierced tube buildings, have a visual impact that pale language cannot describe. Attack. No one would foolishly believe that the monster in front of them would be meant to convey friendliness, without even requiring unified command. Nearby ninjas would have their hearts beating wildly, their bodies instinctively responding to stress, and their dazzling ninjutsu would be smashed over like no money. One tentacle was cut off by the rotating airflow, the other tentacle was engulfed by the surging fiery face, and the whole body was covered in bitter hedgehogs that turned into thorns. In the blink of an eye, Sue could feel the greetings from the ninja world, asking for group fights and not talking about martial arts dead. Between pauses in the baptism of ninjutsu, a broken tentacle suddenly bounced up and grabbed the nearby ninja, instantly turning into a paper-like burst of flesh and blood into a shower of blood. The other section of the charred tentacle emitted a eerie and cold aura, with the surface carbon shell peeling off. With a wave of the tentacle, the carbon shell turned into a splashing bullet covering the ninjas. A sudden ninja was shot through in an instant, shattering the ground like flesh and blood tofu. Looking back at those two tentacles, it was like a gecko struggling to survive with a broken arm. However, it shamelessly crawled back to its broken body, took a few breaths, and then returned to grow well. At this moment, it happened to be unhappily pulling out the bitterness from its own body. As they pulled out, they shot out at a much faster speed than before. The continuous sound of sonic booms echoed through the air, causing the ground to be riddled. The wooden blocks used in the stunt fell in the air, and the shattered sawdust filled the potholes on the ground. This monster can be reborn with severed limbs, and its wounds have also healed. What is the situation? Also, there is no bleeding on its body. Isn't this monster a flesh and blood body? The dark ninjas looked at each other, their minds filled with question marks, and their faces became solemn. The only fortunate thing is that although the nature of this monster is still unclear, fortunately, it is only one. White Jew, who was hiding underground with only a bare head exposed, was observing with a meow. His thoughts were one step ahead, and he was already planning how to cut some fragments from this monster's corpse and seal it when cleaning the battlefield later, so that he could take it back for Black Jew to study. The emptiness of being alone has been underestimated. Bang, bang, bang. The thunderous sound of the salute cannon echoed in 3 dimensions throughout the entire blood mist, and other virtual companions also competed to land. The facial muscles beneath the masks of the dark ninjas froze, and they looked up incredulously. They found that wherever there were sounds echoing from all directions, it must be filled with black smoke, but rather a series of uniquely shaped giant monsters roaring. Are they responding to the loneliness here? Baiju's mouth opened into a nest shape. There are a total of 9 such monsters, 1, 2, 38, and 9. What kind of ghosts? They are not illegitimate offspring of a certain tailed beast, but have laid a nest. It's just that, difficult to understand. Thinking made his brain feel like it was smoking, and Baiju felt that his brain had overheated. He was not suitable for this kind of brain-burning thinking. He quickly stopped his chaotic associations and let the crashed brain catch his breath. The battlefield has entered the second stage. The smoke and dust billowed, and the massive monster displayed the destructive power of a bulldozer. Buildings collapsed one after another, and the ground shook continuously, awakening the entire blood mist. The ninjas, both inside and outside, quickly rushed to the battlefield. As expected, the number of guards at the entrance and exit of the village quickly decreased. Everyone's home has been stolen, who is still guarding the tower? In order for us to leave smoothly, did our friends work very hard? The farewell wind lifted the hem of the death bully's dress, creating dark ripples. A tall and short figure emerged from the hidden corner, and the short man wearing a mask was speaking to the tall man with squinting eyes, his tone full of emotion. Shimaru dug out her ear. After we leave, they should also be able to evacuate safely, right? Hui Naijian was an emotional person who stared at Shimaru, hoping to get a good answer from the other person's mouth. This is probably very difficult. The main reason why the ninjas can make a big fuss is that they lack direct restraint, but ultimately, it is just a lack of intelligence that leads to being caught off guard. After all, it is just a few ordinary ninjas, and ninjas are not weak ordinary people. Marubeni City probably figured out a little bit of President Naijian's performance fetish and cooperated, adding, being killed or sealed is a foreseeable outcome, but being able to dedicate oneself to President Naijian would also be the most valuable journey of life in virtual history. Captain Maruyan is really an honest person, trustworthy. Hui Yanai stopped and lightly rubbed the mask on his face with his index finger. His gaze had already swept towards the guarded ninja guards at the entrance and exit, and he said softly, I guess they won't kindly let us go. The words fell. The scabbard lifted lightly, and the unparalleled sharp blade instantly penetrated the space. The dazzling white light pierced through the throat, and the splashing blood adorned the color, like a sudden blooming marigold flower. Desperate flower words whispered in my ear. I'm sure they will agree to let us leave, President Naijian. Shimaru gently flicked the blood stains on the knife, and the short and delicate knife was harmless to humans and animals. It seemed completely unable to connect with the fierce blade that had just extended like lightning, biting a life several hundred meters away. The body fell heavily on the ground, and a tacit response was given later on. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The 13th and 3rd Team of the Court Protector. Captain Shimaru. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The 13th and 3rd Team of the Court Protector. Captain Shimaru the ninja, whose throat was shattered by the hole, only then had a delayed response. The color in his pupils faded, and a whistling sound emerged in his mouth. The body fell straight backwards, with its cheeks facing upwards eerily peaceful. I didn't even realize it until I died, did I? The splashing blood splattered onto the faces of several nearby ninjas, and the temperature of the blood was so hot that it was chilling. Dead. Are you joking? What happened just now? Gulu, the sound of saliva swallowing and the wriggling of the Adam's apple echoed simultaneously. More than a dozen gazes were fixed on the figure hundreds of meters away, afraid to blink at all, afraid of experiencing the same hallucination again. Is that knife extended? A few hundred meters. How could it be? It's a hallucination, right? But Nagaya is really dead. His throat has been pierced by a blade. How could this be a hallucination? 10 or so ninjas stationed at the entrance and exit looked at each other in confusion. Indeed, they should have gone back to the village just now instead of staying at the entrance and exit to fulfill their duties. Otherwise, how could they have been subjected to such an incredible attack? What kind of people are you? Takashiro Nishindo, who was stationed at the entrance of the village, had a serious expression and didn't even wipe the blood stains on his face. He was afraid that if he was distracted, he would lie dead on his own. The knife was very strange, and a knife that could stretch for hundreds of meters was unheard of. What's even more terrifying is that it was as fast as lightning, almost as fast as a blink of an eye. Can you answer him? It has been a long time since the divine spear drank its blood. Sniffing the smell of the cold blade flowing through the scorching blood, Shimaru Yin's face showed a rare hint of intoxication. He turned his head to ask for permission from President Naijian. Inspired to be a mastermind behind the scenes, one should always conceal their identity, but a monotonous script does not conform to the director's aesthetic. Besides, I'm wearing a mask on my face. Only the villains who shout, fight, need to conceal their identities, and aren't we just right? Captain Marubeni, I wonder if we can answer his question. You just need to follow your own heart. Huiyi Naijian replied solemnly. Always emphasizing one's own justice and shaping good people repeatedly, it seems that this is a kind of paranoia of President Naijian. Shimaru suppressed his desire to complain in his heart. During his long life, he met all kinds of people, but he has always been through the same camouflage performance, and even into the play to hypnotize himself. Only the man who played with the corpse and soul world in his hands. And, at this moment, Shimaru suspected that he was meeting a second man with the same traits in his lifetime. Blue Dai Sosuke is deceiving and manipulating the entire corpse soul realm with lies. Is it possible that Hinayama Naruto is planning to play with the entire ninja realm as well? Where will you go? Why do I have to follow this kind of character every time? Is this fate? So, what role should I play this time? I am the captain of the 13th and 3rd teams of the Hokuto Court, Shimaru. Shimaru pursed his lips into a thin line, his eyes narrowed into gaps and swallowed a faint light. His short and broken purple hair partially covered his cheeks, and his black and white opposing death suit was automatic. He reached out with one hand and held a knife flat, revealing a signature smile on his face. He whispered, "Please make way for your life. 13 times protecting the court." Strange name, I haven't heard of it at all. Is it an unknown small organization? Strange attire, eerie knives, and the short man wearing a mask seem to be the leader among the two. Damn it, it's just 2 people. How dare you speak up? With that knife alone. Arrogance. When did you infiltrate the misty hidden village, how long did you hide here, and what was your purpose? Fujimoto Shiro tried to gather more information from the enemy while also delaying time. His hand hidden behind him quietly gestured to the other ninjas, issuing a series of combat commands. Number 6 Siege Formation, in groups of 3, interferes with line of sight, runs in a zigzag shape to close up, engages in close combat, prioritizes attacking the wielder, grabs the sword, regardless of life or death. Purpose. Shimaru Inu glanced at Kaguya Nana and said with a smile, "There is no such thing. If I had to say it, perhaps it was just because fate chose to start over here. Finally, I give you one last piece of advice. Dying at the beginning of the story is of no value. Up." Fujimoto Shiro let out a low shout. All the ninjas scattered at the same time, running irregularly towards the enemy hundreds of meters away at high speed, each with their own imprints in their hands. A thick haze enveloped them on a large scale, engulfing the running figures one by one, along with the sound being swallowed up. Basic skills of the mist-hidden ninja. Mist-hidden technique plus silent killing technique. Amidst the haze that was nowhere to be seen, the murderous intent lurked in all directions, as if to separate and devour the 2 people around the center. From beginning to end, Shimaru Jin remained motionless, standing in place like a sculpture. Then, he murmured softly, reciting the long-lost liberation language. "Shoot him, divine gun." The piercing white light flashed away, and Pai Lien, like a whip, pierced through a blood line. He could only hear the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground, starting from the City of Silver, and continuously ringing in the haze. He just steadily raised his short sword, casually adjusting the angle, and quietly listened to the sound of the divine spear's thirst for blood. Shit. 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 Blood and flesh pierce through, blood drips and spills, soul annihilation, silently leaving only a note for the world, monotonously repeating in the haze, making the living shiver, and this shock only fleets, then comes to an end. The only thing that remains unchanged is the indifferent mask on Kaguya's face, as well as the unwavering steps of Shimaru. The thick fog dissipated, and all the corpses lying on the ground were on a 50-meter radius arc. This was the mercy of Hiroshi Shimaru, who allowed these foolish bodies to move forward together in death. It's too far, not feeling the murmur of death, too close, blood easily splashes onto shoes. Cough cough. Blood mixed with meat foam coughed out of his throat, and as the first person to charge, Fujimoto Shiro still breathed a sigh. This was definitely intentional by Shimaru, and his squinting eyes were no bigger than those of a needle. Why can you see it? A fist-sized hole pierced through his chest, and shattered internal organs spurted out. Tenfengsi lay on the ground, using his last strength to lift his head and asked with an unwilling expression. Mist-hidden technique plus silent killing technique, Fujimoto Shiro even used the water-splitting technique in the haze. Despite all these layers of insurance, they were unable to disrupt the enemy's vision. The knife had no impact and killed accurately throughout the entire process. Whether it's hiding, zigzag running, or clone art, they all fail. As long as one foot steps on the edge line of a 50-meter radius, it will be instantly shot, and even effortlessly make all the corpses die neatly at a distance of 50 meters. This is intentional, right? Is it to satisfy some kind of evil taste? Captain of the 13th and 3rd Team of the Court Protector, Shimaru is a terrifying monster. It seems that my eyesight is very good. The gaps between his eyes opened and closed, and the light blue pupils were like shallow streams, clear and bottomless, reflecting the ferocious face of Fujimoto Shiro with indifference. This man could never have heard the truth from the mouth of Maruyuki in the end. You are truly a genius who wants to use haze to block death's sight, monster. Fujimoto Shiro gritted his teeth. Wrong, it's the Grim Reaper. Shimaru Inu said. This person is so wicked and ruthless that I'm dying. He even used the name of the Grim Reaper to deceive me. Fujimoto Shiro's last thought came to his soul, and he gritted his teeth and uttered his last words, "You're deceiving." He suddenly passed away and his soul dissipated. Shimaruyan silently defended himself in his heart. It's rare to say the truth and not be believed by anyone. Haha. Huina's expression was strange when she met, and she also received a reminder in her mind, you have achieved something. Menshin has achieved success, signed a contract, seeking monthly tickets and rewards from the generals who are exploring countless universes, mastering all truths, and watching the screen. Thank you for giving a cold and warm 6,500 reward. Starting from today, we will start 2 shifts. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Greetings from the Grim Reaper. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Greetings from the Grim Reaper. This is a traceable event in history. The 13th Hokuden has exposed its traces for the first time in the ninja realm. This is the first official greeting initiated by the Jingling Court to the ninja realm, and it is of historic significance. You have achieved the achievement of greeting the god of death. You have achieved 1,000 achievement points. You have embarked on an important historical process. The glory of the Quiet Spirit Court. You need to fill the gaps of the death god in the new world, popularize and spread the history of the Quiet Spirit Court, revive the ancient Quiet Spirit Court, regain the power and glory of death. The current list of open processes is as follows. 1. Reaper's debut, achieved. 2. The assembly of the 13 guards, 1/13, 3. The current occupied stronghold, 0, 4. Projection of iconic buildings, 0, 5. Historical evidence, none. A long string of drop-down menus appeared in front of the retina, resembling a task list for low-quality single-player games, with only simple text titles arranged densely in a long string. The scrolling axis on the right can pull down more than 10 meters. There is a very irresponsible comment at the bottom. P.S. The current total progress is 1%, and the settlement threshold has not been reached yet. Surprisingly, it was because Marubeni reported its own success and started the historical process. Interestingly, I always feel that this cheating mechanism is implying something to me. Don't spread the glory of Jinglingting. Translated into Mandarin, it's just to make things high-profile and public. Got it. Huinai blinked her eyes and her abacus cracked in her heart. Besides, the first death show just now clearly referred to Marubeni City, and it's also on my head. All the performance created by the workers belongs to the company owner, that's very reasonable. Working people are forced to dress up outside to enhance their self-worth. The boss helps with financial management behind the scenes. No problem praise, great HR, cheat. Shimaru wiped off the bloodstains on the dry sword and turned his head to meet the scorching gaze. Kaguya Nana saw that the joy and love in her eyes were almost overflowing, giving people a feeling of exaggerated and clumsy acting. Shimaru buttocks muscles inexplicably contracted and tense, and there was a slight coolness in her coccyx. Is there anything wrong? Asked Marubeni carefully. No, you did a great job and I am very satisfied. Hui Naijian used two very words in a row to express her full affirmation of Marubeni. Shimaru avoided the eyes of Kaguya Naomi and gave a dry laugh. Unfortunately, time is running out too quickly. Otherwise, I would recite prayers for these people who have returned to their pure land. Hui Nai restrained her love in her eyes and said that she was not willing to take money for nothing, but also willing to work hard. Reciting prayers to the dead is a kind and sacred ritual that can allow the souls of the deceased to rest in peace. It is also a noble work area of the god of death, and these solid basic knowledge are included in the beginner package of /fist and go away. The soul-slaying blade emitted a slight trembling sound, and the divine spear expressed dissatisfaction. He sent a private voice message to the consciousness of Marubeni City, saying, "He is looking down on me. Those who were shot by the divine spear will never hear the prayer. They have gone berserk. Hey, don't expose others' hypocritical masks, it may be an unbearable consequence." Shimao responded lightly in his heart. He had seen too many people who didn't understand the weight of this sentence die tragically in the end. How did you know that lies are not the greatest kindness shown to the world by some people? The divine spear fell silent. The road leading out of the village has been cleared and can now be left, but I will see the president, said Shimaru. Hui Yanai glanced at the chaotic blood mist under the night sky. At least she had lived here for 3 years and didn't feel anything about it. She really wanted to leave, but instead, she was sentimental and had some feelings of separation. This person is so sentimental and tight. I forgot to take the inheritance and land deed of the Bone and Vein clan. I can freely let go of the hatred of extermination and the hatred of killing oneself, but I can't bear to abandon those friends on the list who crave purification like this. There is also *** Kong, this woman. If I transfer the opportunity that originally belonged to her to someone else, she will definitely hold a grudge against me. It's okay, let the past go with the wind and disappear into thin air. Gone. I will come back again. Hui Yanai heard the sound of farewell coming from the air, and Su's roar was not as loud as it was at first. It seemed that the first group of Su was about to complete their historical mission. Hui Yanai stopped his inner worries and carefully stepped over a corpse to prevent blood stains from staining the soles of his shoes. He followed Shimaru out of the village. You have achieved the achievement of defecting to Fog-Hidden Village. As a god of death, one cannot forget one's roots. Although no one knows, tracing the origin of your armed skeleton comes from the bones and veins of the Fog-Hidden Village. You used this identity to complete a defection and obtain 500 achievement points. You opened a hidden event. I endorse defection. 1/5, I endorse defection. I always join new organizations with good intentions. At first, we had a pleasant time together, but later things slowly changed. I found a more noble organization, and they finally no longer trust me. I can only choose to leave alone. P.S. It is necessary to use the same artifact to complete the event. Each completion will increase the event reward settlement by 5 times from the previous one. As the soul of the Shu stepped out of the land of the misty hidden village and breathed in the air of freedom, Hui Nai saw a line of reminders in his mind that he had accidentally become the spokesperson for a certain brand. Moreover, the initial endorsement fee was relatively low, but there was still plenty of room for growth in the future. He suddenly felt that the footsteps of the soul had become lighter, and he had already begun to enjoy a beautiful tomorrow in his heart. Current achievement points are 1687. 1 discount promotion countdown. 66 hours 47 minutes, the huge and ugly head was cleaved by a knife, and the pale mask split and fell off in half, revealing half of a human face. The face was swollen and rotten, with white bumps on the surface. At first glance, it looked like it had been bitten by countless white maggots and was no longer human, but the shape of its eyes, nose, and mouth was clearly enlarged and rotten. His face was roaring wildly, but the mist on the battlefield was suddenly pressed to pause, falling into a deathly silence. These monsters' masks seemed to have faces underneath. How could it be possible? That face seems to be from Nagato Wind Valley. An uncertain murmur seemed to be amplified in people's ears, followed by more terrifying sounds. The answer gradually became unified, and the original identity of Void One was confirmed. A chilling fear silently infected everyone. A monster hiding a face may just be a misunderstanding, so peel off another monster's mask and take a look. Click. The rotating large sword penetrated into the monster's head, and without chopping its feet and stepping on the monster's head, it sliced off the entire mask with the sword, revealing a face with countless white threads and rotten skin. The huge eyeballs with opposite eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. Rao, who was known as the Ghost Man, stood on that face and eyes, and his steel-like cold heart suddenly twitched twice. Hey, it's really a face. A hoarse and teasing voice came from beside, and the dried persimmon ghost shark grinned and held up a bandaged big knife with one hand, fiercely smashing the monster's mask. The bandage on the big knife exploded, and the serrated fish scale knife mysteriously exposed sharp teeth, biting off half of the monster's face in one bite and chewing in a crunching big mouth. The shark muscle told me that the taste of this monster is very delicious. Although it hides a face, 90% of its body is made of chakra condensation, which is very delicious. The dried persimmon ghost shark licked its mouth and said. On the ground, a thin and small figure slowly walked over, with a doll-like face covered in darkness and coldness. The fourth generation Eye, Shuein Goju Yakura, scanned the unknown monster with cold eyes, without any emotional warmth in his eyes. The murmuring voice echoed on the battlefield. Monster. People. There's no difference. Everyone is going to die. Mengxin seeks a monthly pass. End of this chapter.